Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something. If you want to be his number one priority and not his second option, you've got to stop acting like a second option. People treat you the way you allow them to treat you. If you settle for leftovers, then leftovers are all you're ever going to get. You can't keep accepting crumbs and then wondering why you never get the whole cake. If you want to be first, you have to position yourself as first in your own life before you ever expect him to do it. Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something real clear right now. If you want to be his number one priority and not his second option, the very first thing you've got to do is know your worth, because the way you see yourself is the way other people are going to see you. If you don't place a high value on yourself, don't expect him to do it either. You can't walk around like a bargain and then wonder why you keep getting treated like something that's on sale. When you understand who you are, when you know deep down that you deserve love, respect, consistency, and commitment, you won't even allow yourself to settle for anything halfway. Now, here's the problem I see all the time. Too many people are so afraid of losing somebody that they're willing to accept less than they deserve. But let me ask you, what's the point of having somebody if all they do is remind you you're not the main thing in their life? See, if you're not first in his eyes, then you're giving your heart to someone who doesn't know how to handle it. And if you don't correct that early, you're setting yourself up for years of being second place in your own relationship. That's not how you should be living. You've got to remind yourself every single day, I am not an option. I am the choice. I am not a backup plan. I am the plan. Here's what happens when you don't know your worth. You start accepting crumbs. You start believing that a last-minute phone call, a text at midnight, or a quick excuse about being busy is enough. You start to tell yourself, well, at least he thought about me. But no, that's not enough. If you know your worth, you won't settle for somebody who squeezes you in when it's convenient. You're going to want someone who makes you part of their plan, not someone who throws you into their spare time. A person who truly sees your value doesn't treat you like an afterthought. They treat you like a priority, because to them, that's exactly what you are. You have to understand that when you don't stand firm on your worth, you're teaching him how to treat you. If you let him get away with being inconsistent, then he'll never be consistent. If you accept excuses instead of effort, then excuses are what you'll always get. People rise to the level of the standard you set. If you don't set the bar high, don't be shocked when they keep walking over it. Knowing your worth is not arrogance, it's respect. Respect for yourself, respect for your time, and respect for the love you're ready to give. When you start valuing yourself, everything changes. You don't chase, you don't beg, and you don't settle. You don't let somebody keep you hanging while they figure out if you're what they want. You step back and let them know, if you can't see my value now, then you don't deserve me when you finally realize it. A man can sense when a woman knows her worth. He can feel it in the way she carries herself, in the way she won't let him slide with empty promises, in the way she expects respect because she gives it to herself first. That's the kind of woman who commands attention without ever demanding it. And let me tell you this, once you truly know your worth, You stop being afraid of walking away, because the fear of losing someone will never be greater than the fear of losing yourself. If he doesn't treat you like number one, if he doesn't make you feel valued, if he doesn't put you in his priority list, then the best thing you can do for yourself is move on. Because when you know your worth, you know that you deserve better than being somebody's second choice. And you'll never be afraid to wait for the person who sees you for who you are and treats you accordingly. So the real secret to being his number one priority starts with you. It starts with you recognizing your own value, refusing to accept less than you deserve, and setting the standard that no one can make you an option. When you know your worth, you'll never have to convince somebody to see it. They either step up or step aside. If you want to be his number one priority and not his second option, the very first thing you've got to understand is that everything starts with you knowing your worth. People can only treat you on the level that you believe you deserve to be treated. If you see yourself as ordinary, then others will treat you as ordinary. But if you see yourself as valuable, irreplaceable, and worthy of real love, then you will not settle for somebody putting you in the background. Too many times people accept the bare minimum because they don't want to lose someone. But here's the truth. If keeping someone requires you to ignore your own value, then you don't really have them anyway. You're just holding on to an illusion. When you know your worth, you refuse to be the one who takes the leftover attention. You stop waiting for calls that come only when he feels like it. You stop tolerating excuses. And you stop letting someone string you along until they're ready to give more. Knowing your worth changes the way you carry yourself. It makes you walk differently. It makes you talk differently. And when a man sees that you carry yourself with confidence and self-respect, he knows he can't treat you any kind of way. He knows that if he doesn't step up, you won't stick around. That's how you shift from being a second option to becoming the only option. But knowing your worth is just the first step. The second step is setting clear boundaries and communicating your expectations. A lot of times relationships get messy because people don't say what they really want. They assume the other person should just know. But the truth is, no one can read your mind. If you want to be a priority, you have to make it clear what that means to you. You can't be afraid to say, this is what I need, this is what I will accept, and this is what I will not accept. Boundaries are not walls. They don't keep love out. They keep the wrong kind of treatment out. When you set boundaries, you give a man a clear picture of how to treat you. And let me be honest, if you don't set those boundaries, then you leave the door wide open for him to decide how much or how little effort he puts in. If you don't make your expectations clear, he may think it's okay to call when it's convenient, to give you half of his attention, or to prioritize everyone else before you. But when you have boundaries, you make it clear that you won't accept being treated like an option. And here's the thing, a real man who values you will respect those boundaries. He won't see them as rules. He'll see them as proof that you respect yourself. Now, when you communicate your expectations, it's not about demanding or nagging. It's about clarity. It's about being confident enough to say, this is how I need to be loved. This is what respect looks like to me. This is how I know I'm a priority in your life. If he can meet that, then you'll know he's serious about you. If he can't, then you'll know where you stand. Either way, you save yourself time, energy, and heartbreak. Let me tell you, when you combine self-worth with boundaries, you become powerful in any relationship. You don't chase, you don't beg, you don't compete. You stand firm. You attract respect because you live in respect. You attract love because you carry love for yourself. That's how you move from being someone's option to being someone's priority. Because the truth is, a man can only treat you as number two if you allow him to. But when you know your worth and you set your boundaries, you'll never again settle for being anything less than number one. If you want to be his number one priority and not his second option, you have to start by knowing your worth. Nothing changes until you understand that you are valuable. People treat you based on the price tag you put on yourself. If you carry yourself like you're ordinary, then don't be surprised when you get treated like you're replaceable. But when you hold yourself to a higher standard, when you believe in your own value, that's when everything shifts. Knowing your worth means you don't settle for half-hearted effort. You don't accept crumbs, and you don't get satisfied with excuses. You stop telling yourself, at least he thought of me, and you start asking, does his effort match the way I deserve to be loved? Once you know your worth, the next step is setting clear boundaries and communicating what you expect. Too often, people end up disappointed in relationships because they never stated their standards. They hoped the other person would figure it out, but let me tell you, nobody can guess your needs. If you want to be treated as a priority, you have to speak it and then back it up by how you live. Boundaries don't mean being harsh or controlling. They mean showing respect for yourself. They let him know what's acceptable and what's not. And here's the real deal. If he values you, he'll respect your boundaries. But if he doesn't, then he'll fight against them. Either way, boundaries reveal the truth. Now, once you know your worth and you've set your boundaries, the next part is this. You stop competing for his attention. This is where a lot of people go wrong. They think if they try harder, if they chase him, if they prove themselves, then he'll finally make them number one. But that's not how it works. The more you chase, the more you show him he doesn't have to. The more you compete, the more you let him think he can sit back and make you fight for a place in his life. That's not respect, that's desperation. And desperation will never make you number one. Walking in confidence is what makes the difference. A confident woman doesn't need to fight for attention. She doesn't need to check where he is every minute or wonder if he's comparing her to someone else. She knows that she's enough. And if he can't see it, then that's his loss. Confidence is not loud, it's steady. It's the calmness that says, I don't have to prove anything because I already know my value. And when a man sees that, when he sees that you're not desperate for his attention, he realizes he has to rise to the standard you've set. See, the problem with competing for attention is that it puts you in second place automatically. Because the moment you start chasing, you're already telling him that his approval is worth more than your self-respect. But when you stop competing, when you stand in your own confidence, you flip the script. You tell him without words, I'm not here to fight for a spot in your life. Either I'm the priority or I'm gone. That's when he realizes you're serious, and that's when he decides whether to step up or step aside. This is why knowing your worth, setting boundaries, and walking in confidence all work together. One without the other doesn't hold as much power. If you know your worth but don't set boundaries, you'll still end up tolerating things you shouldn't. If you set boundaries but don't have confidence, you'll end up second-guessing yourself and letting those boundaries slide. If you're confident but don't know your worth, you'll project strength on the outside while still hurting on the inside. But when you put them all together, you create a foundation that can't be shaken. You stop chasing, you stop competing, you stop settling. You create space for a man to treat you as number one, and you make it impossible for him to keep you as number two. If you want to be his number one priority and not his second option, you first have to know your worth. That is the foundation, because people will only rise to the level that you set for yourself. If you walk around acting like you're replaceable, you will be replaced. But if you walk in